Welcome back to another UCL Fantasy Best Wildcard team. This time, out of Matchday 12, the second leg of the semi-finals, I'll be building the best 15-man squad using this chip, and this will help you with your non-wildcard teams by identifying the best transfers to make with your free transfers for the second leg of the semi-finals. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon, Championships Discord server, the UCL Fantasy League, as well as Spotify and Amazon Music. Follow me on those platforms and leave a 5-star review on my podcast. But let's jump straight into this. But before I delve into each position, I want to provide injury updates for every single team left in the competition. All yellow cards were reset in Matchday 11, and the only suspended player we had for the first leg of the semi-finals was Dani Carvajal. He has served that suspension and he is now available, so we have no suspended players from the 4 semi-finalists, but we do have fresh injury concerns, especially from Bayern Munich. Eric Dyer has a head injury and he'll be fighting tooth and nail to be available against Real Madrid, but that isn't set in stone. But what is the fact that Guerreiro will miss out against Real Madrid and every single game left this season due to a ligament injury, and he is a doubt for the Euros as well. That is a massive blow for Bayern Munich. De Ligt still has that knee injury and it's being assessed day to day. Kingsley Coman sustained a groin injury a couple of weeks ago and he is still a doubt for that clash against Real Madrid. Sacha Boey has a hip problem and he's also a doubt. The same goes for Sarr and Bookman, who is out for the rest of the season. Real Madrid have no injury concerns, but I believe David Alaba didn't train, and apart from that, Real Madrid have everyone fully fit and available. Borussia Dortmund have Adeyemi, who's a fresh injury concern with a knock, and that's being assessed day to day. Sebastian Haller, Duranville and Ben Sabani are still out at this moment in time, whilst Paris Saint-Germain had that problem against Borussia Dortmund during the match where Lucas Hernandez was subbed off due to an ACL injury, and he'll be available in early January. That's a 7 to 8 month layoff. Hopefully he recovers very soon. Kazawa, Kimpembe and Sergio Rico are all still out at this moment in time, and Rico is definitively out for the rest of the season due to a head injury. So those are all the injury concerns and no suspended players whatsoever. Let's now jump into the goalkeepers and build this best 15-man wildcard squad. Kobol's been undeniably the best goalkeeper in UCL Fantasy this season. On the limitless, I would consider Donnarumma over the German, but I honestly think either goalkeeper is fine in this scenario. PSG have a better chance of a clean sheet and of potentially going through, but Kobel has a higher ceiling with the saves, and he can also make penalty saves as he's demonstrated in this season's Champions League. So Kobel for me is the best goalkeeper, but if you want to go for Donnarumma, I'm not really against that right now. And I'd also go for Lunin because Carlo Ancelotti confirmed that Lunin will start against Bayern Munich despite Courtois returning over the weekend and starting against Cadiz. So these two goalkeepers look exceptional. The only one I'd consider apart from these two is Donnarumma. As legendary as Manuel Neuer is, I think Bayern Munich will be eliminated, and I just can't see Real Madrid failing to score in that match. So I would go for Lunin and Kobel as the two goalkeepers on the wildcard. Clean sheets have been very hard to predict in UCL Fantasy, particularly in the knockout stages, but if I had to pick one team to pile up on defensively, it would be Paris Saint-Germain with that home advantage, and I think this game will be lower scoring than what we saw between Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, and that's pretty much what happened in the first leg as well. Marquinhos is very good for ball recoveries. He also has a bit of goal threat from set pieces, although he hasn't shown it too much this season so far, but this will be a great time to do it for Paris Saint-Germain to push them into the Champions League final once again. I'd also go for Hakimi and double, potentially triple up on Paris Saint-Germain defensively should you go for Donnarumma in goal. Another PSG defender you can go for is Nuno Mendes, but apart from that, I think there's a bit too much rotation for my liking, although Skriniar should start with Lucas Hernandez now out for the rest of the season. Lucas Beraldo could also get more minutes. It's between those two for that final defender slot, but I think Hakimi, Marquinhos and Nuno Mendes are by far the best PSG defenders. I would also go for Mats Hummels, the best defender in UCL Fantasy. You can't even deny it. He has 108 ball recoveries. He also has 75 UCL Fantasy points, the most of any defender. And the ball recoveries makes him the very best option in the game. And I would consider a double up in Borussia Dortmund defensively with either Maatsen or Schlotterbeck. And on the limitless, you could argue Schlotterbeck is better and you go for Maatsen on the wild card, but they're both affordable with both chips if you've played UCL Fantasy from the beginning of the season and built up team value like I have. So honestly, take your pick from Borussia Dortmund defenders, but I think Hummels, Schlotterbeck and Maatsen are the best choices. The reason why Maatsen might be a bit lower down in the pecking order is that he picks too many yellow cards during his time at Borussia Dortmund. And the final defender is the weakest part of this squad, as I highlighted during the best Limitless team video and podcast. I'm going for Dani Carvajal, but I think all Real Madrid defenders leave a lot to be desired. My favourite would be David Alaba, but he's not in training and I don't expect him to start against his former club Bayern Munich. So Dani Carvajal is probably the best of a bad bunch, and I always say for Real Madrid, the best way to cover them defensively is either Courtois or Lunin in goal, whoever is available at that moment in time, and Lunin will start in Matchday 12, so he is definitely the one you want to go for Real Madrid. If you were to go for a second, I'd probably go for Carvajal. Other options include Rudiger and Ferland Mendy, but I'm not a big fan of any of them, to be quite honest with you. I think the best defenders in UCL Fantasy lie with Borussia Dortmund and Paris Saint-Germain, with Marquinhos, Hakimi, Hummel, Schlotterbeck, Maatsen, and Nuno Mendes. In my personal opinion, Bellingham has been quite underwhelming in the Champions League knockout stages with some very poor performances, but his first half of the season was incredible and he's a great talent, one of the best midfielders in the world, and he's going to be a captaincy option once again for the Wednesday match against Bayern Munich, and he could come up with another clutch goal as he has done all season. And for me, he's by far the best Real Madrid midfielder, although in terms of the assets, I do think Vinicius and Rodrigo could be slightly better, especially in Vinicius's case. Now, I would go for Zaire Emery still, but you can make a case for going for Vitinha instead. I think it's a very close call. I don't even mind going for two of them, to be quite honest with you. And based on current form, as I mentioned in the best Limitless team video and podcast, if I had to pick one, it would be Vitinha. But honestly, I do see Zaire Emery as having the highest ceiling, and he's more likely to score goals and get assists, although he hasn't shown it too much in this calendar year. Now, the third midfielder I'm going to go for is from Borussia Dortmund, but not Sabitzer or Julian Brandt. Instead, it'll be Jadon Sancho, who completed 12 dribbles in the Champions League knockout game, and I think that's actually one of the best of all time. I think Neymar has a lot of those records for most dribbles in this stage of the competition, but Sancho did really well against PSG. In my opinion, he deserved the Player of the Match award over Mats Hummels, but I'll take it as a non-Sancho owner, of course. Now, with two midfielder slots left, I'm going to go for a double up in Real Madrid, and I'm going to go for Federico Valverde, who is looking to get the 15th Champions League title for Real Madrid to match his shirt number. These lot are so greedy, aren't they? But he's a quality player. For me, he's the best Real Madrid midfielder overall, but in UCL Fantasy, Bellingham is significantly better due to the goals and the assists. And finally, I'm going for Leroy Sané just to cover Bayern Munich offensively in case they go to the final. And as you saw in the first leg, Leroy Sané has that magic moment in him. That was a bullet shot to fly past Lunin, and it was at his near post, but he could do nothing about it. That velocity, that ferocity, it was just absolutely amazing. It was a great goal, and Musiala is another one to consider. Also Serge Gnabry to cover Bayern Munich offensively, but Leroy Sané is my favourite, and in the Champions League, he has been very underrated in the last couple of years, although I will admit this season he hasn't really been up to that same standard. He's been very inconsistent, but I still think he's an absolute quality player, and this midfield five is also full of quality. Let me know what you would do in terms of Vitinha or Zaire Emery. Would you go for Musiala or Gnabry over Sané? I would be open to those ideas. In terms of Borussia Dortmund midfielders though, Julian Brandt hasn't started a single away game in the Champions League this season, so if you were to go for a Dortmund midfielder, it has to be Sancho or Sabitzer, in my personal opinion. There are 4 top quality forwards in UCL Fantasy to choose from. If you pick 3 of them, you'll probably get a lot of UCL Fantasy points regardless, but leaving out that 4th choice will be very difficult. I would go for Harry Kane on the wildcard just in case Bayern Munich do go through to the Champions League final, and Harry Kane has had a tremendous season individually. He's also done very well in the Champions League throughout his career, and if Bayern Munich were to go through, Harry Kane will be integral to making that happen. But for me, the best forward in UCL Fantasy is Vinicius Jr., as he showed in the first leg for Matchday 11. A brace at the Allianz Arena, a penalty, a well-worked goal with Toni Kroos. He deceived Kim Min-jae with that run, and it was brilliant play by Vinicius, who steps up at this stage of the competition. He scored a Champions League winning goal against Liverpool a couple of years ago as well. I think Vinicius is probably the best captaincy option for the Wednesday, but I'll talk about that very soon. The other one to consider from Real Madrid is Rodrigo, but I would go for Kylian Mbappe instead of him. And if you were to go for the Brazilian to partner Vinicius, it would be either Harry Kane or Rodrigo for that final forward slot. I don't think Vinicius or Mbappe are negotiable, especially when you're looking at captaincy options for the Tuesday as well. And speaking of which, for the Tuesday, I would go for Kylian Mbappe, but if you are backing Dortmund, I wouldn't mind a Sancho or something a bit different like that, but I would stick with Mbappe on the Tuesday. I think it gets a bit more interesting for the Wednesday match because you've got Harry Kane, Bellingham, Rodrigo, and Vinicius to choose from, but I'd personally go for Vinicius. However, Rodrigo would be second in my list and Bellingham in third place, although that could definitely change by the deadline stream, so be sure to tune in for that on Tuesday from 6 p.m. UK time. That's pretty much everything covered, all the injuries, the lack of suspensions we have, everything you need to know for Matchday 12 is covered in this video and podcast. Tune in for my team selection where I delve into my transfer plans, and there's a lot more content headed your way for FPL and UCL Fantasy as this season draws to a close. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 25k subscribers and beyond. You'll also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon, the channel memberships, the Discord server, UCL Fantasy League, Draft Town, as well as Spotify and Amazon Music. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 12 and Matchday 13, and I'll see you next time.